Hello and welcome back to the Josh Leesman Experience, JLXP for short. I am Joshua Jat Leesman, joined by Kien Lam in our what has now become just week over week Wednesday morning podcast. And normally we go through your 10 thoughts and talk about what you thought about writing them and do a little bit of a dip on both teams. But then last night, Steve tweets that Tactical will be starting. We get him to clarify if it's because Doublelift is still sick. He says it's not because he's still sick. And then Doublelift tweets that he's been benched. So obviously we have to lead with this story of Doublelift not starting for Team Liquid after taking 1 week off for sickness and Tactical doing well. What was your first thought when you saw this Doublelift news?
Well, my first thought was I really respected the hustle from you when Steve tweeted it out, and then you immediately asked for clarification. I was like, oh, Jet's doing his work for the podcast tomorrow.
I kind of want to start doing this more, actually. I was really impressed with the quickness of the clarity from Steve and then the quickness of Doublelift tweeting out, like comparing this to some other high profile benchings of the past where a team has basically just like, I'm not going to say lied, but they're clearly holding a lot of information back and just no one is giving details. The players or the teams. Yeah. Whereas here it was very much like Steve, yep, we signed an Academy 80 carry so Tactical can focus on LCS, and yep, Doublelift is benched.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest comparison is you think back to the Cloud9 famous benchings from, I think, a year and a half ago now, and compared to the way that they communicated here, I was like, again, I agree with you. I was extremely,
it was almost eerie. It was like, is this esports? Yeah, is this sports?
It's from their perspective, it's just so smart to do that because you just crush a lot of the rumors. I mean, the rumor has been going around for a couple weeks now of like, oh, Doublelift doesn't care about Spring Split, and a lot of I think analysts are kind of put in this position where it's hard for you to talk about that and speculate about that because it kind of comes off as rumor mongering, even if that seems to be the case. So I was glad to see Doublelift come out and actually just confirm, hey, I haven't been motivated until I got sick, and that's kind of where I wanted to start was, and this is a really interesting thing because we've seen players in the past deal with motivational issues. I think my first thought was thinking back to High, for example, when he stopped playing solo queue games, and Doublelift has, I think, been not really playing that many solo queue games this split. That, to me, is one of the first big signs that a player is struggling with motivation issues because you just don't love the game. So at that point, when this becomes your job, I think that's where it becomes difficult. You compare it to somebody like Caps, who just clearly loves League of Legends, and there's a huge difference in what you see on the Rift versus off the Rift. And one of the things I was talking about is and he was saying that he kind of found it again now that he's been away from it.
At least that, I mean, it's like he's tweeted wake up call 4 times. This split, and this actually might be the actual wake up call. We would hope.
And I hope it is the wake up call. The thing I'm curious about is, and I compare this to if you've ever been in a relationship, you break up, and in that first couple days you want to go back and get back together with them. I also have the same relationship with World of Warcraft, where I eventually realize I don't miss the relationship. I don't miss World of Warcraft. What I miss is loving that person, or I miss loving World of Warcraft, which is very different than actually missing the game itself.
You miss just the process and the feeling of doing that thing.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee you get that back, and that's the thing I'm kind of curious with Doublelift now, is at. And I think
so that's where you're at. You're saying, hey, it's not if, but when he gets back into the starting roster?
I think he'll be back eventually, regardless of even whether he's motivated or not motivated or whatever. I think at least in the short term, he'll find a burst where he'll keep playing. And I think it's if you are, let's say it's fifth game of group stage at Worlds, your team is 2-2, and that, I mean, you're pretty tight. You might get out of groups, you might not get out of groups. There's never a situation in which you convince me that Team Liquid's going to be better with Tactical instead of Doublelift.
I mean, generally speaking, the fact that he has had this unprecedented run of dominance within the LCS. It's kind of freaky to me how quickly this thing became normal, and this makes a bunch of sense.
Yes.
Because on Sunday night, right after we saw TL win 2 games with Tactical, and people were basically a shitpost to say Doublelift was the problem.
Yeah.
But
shitpost the ball.
right? Because I played this game with Mark, and it was something, nothing, or everything.
Yeah,
it's from the jump on ESPN, and it's basically TL being so dominant with tactical is something, nothing, or everything. And both Mark and I said something.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, I think, at the time would just completely write it off.
Yeah.
Because, dude, it's Doublelift.
Right.
Right? But actually, it's closer to everything than it is to nothing at this point. Because I'm actually impressed that TL did this so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way I was expecting it to play out was they have this great week with tactical where I have some stats. The team KDA was 67. They had 22 kills, 1 death, and 45 assists.
Wow.
It was one of the cleanest 2 games a team has ever had in NA.
They look like Cloud9.
They looked like, hey, maybe this team could compete with Cloud9. And this was without Doublelift.
Yeah.
And you contrast that with the team that walked into the week at 4-6, and there were so many compounding factors of, maybe it's Broxa again, right? But Broxa actually looked a little bit more comfortable even the week before last, and that energy, I feel like, kind of emboldened Team Liquid to say, hey, we can win. We think we can win every game with tactical. So if we also have international aspirations and we don't want Doublelift to just like stick around and kind of meander in whatever murkiness of motivation he currently has, then like let's do this now. But what I expected to have happen is tactical wins, Doublelift gets back from illness, he plays again, then if they lose again, then they consider doing this. Not like, oh yeah, dude, it's done.
Yeah.
Like it's so fast how quickly they put tactical in my opinion.
Yeah, I would have just lied, honestly, if I was Liquid. I would have just been like, oh, yeah, Doublelift still feeling a little ill, couldn't really get that many reps in.
That's what I expected to happen.
We're just going to sit him just for precautionary reasons, sit him for one more week. And then you get the free look at, like, oh, here's round 2.
Yeah, then if he wins 4 in a row, then you're like, all right, we're not as worried about the PR here.
But it was very decisive from them. And I thought that was really great. And especially, like, I also want to just give tons of credit to Liquid. Like you said, going into the weekend, 4-6, we didn't really get to talk about this because we didn't see that tactical would be subbing in until after. That's great. Like that was like you're 4-6 and you lose your best player. You would like they could have easily been 4-8, and then at that point we're starting to talk about, well, maybe we just call the season a wash for Liquid, and instead they just completely crush. And now they're looking like, I had the parlay bets last week where I said Liquid 2 was one of them, and it's like that's looking like pretty good now if they can keep playing like that.
Right.
And it was just really impressive to see what happens. I'm kind of curious going forward. I think a lot we give. A lot of people give Doublelift, I think, a lot of crap. Like, I was reading a lot of comments saying, like, oh, like, how can you ever recover from something like this? RNG does this literally every year in spring with Uzi, and we let them get away with it. Of course, they say that's for physical reasons, which I'm sure is at least partially true. A lot of it's got to be for mental issues, too. And I think that's, like, even if it was only for mental issues, I think that's perfectly a good reason to take some time off for Doublelift. Like, and like that's one of the things I'm just kind of curious. It feels a little bit like a double standard if we're going to let one guy get away with it. And I feel like as long as he ultimately can find the motivation to come back, and he's proven that, like, hey, 2017, he's done this before. So I don't feel like I'm worried about whether he wants to win Worlds. Like, you just have to think for 2 seconds back to some of the clips he has after he loses at Worlds.
Yeah.
I am not at all worried.
How much it means to him.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that aspect of it. So I think eventually, if this time off helps out, I hope he actually takes some time and that's like isn't too pressured and stressed out by this like quote unquote benching situation. I think just kind of embrace it and take it for what it is.
It is really interesting because there are multiple examples from traditional sports. Like if we separate ourselves a little bit from the double situation.
Yes.
Load management is one of the hottest topics in NBA Twitters and podcasts, especially with Kawhi Leonard, who many think has some degenerative condition in his left leg, whether it's like a quadricep or a knee. They always say like left knee load management is now like the official injury designation. Yeah. But the dude plays like 60 of the 82 regular season games in the year, so he's ready for the playoffs. Now, that even in this multi-million-dollar sphere where we know championships come with so much prestige, is very controversial.
Yep.
And not just for the pundits, for the teammates as well. because you can put yourself in the situation of Kawhi Leonard's teammates who are actually playing 82 games and have to put themselves at risk of more injury and more burnout because the superstar is resting.
Yeah.
And in Doublelift's case, there isn't as much of like a acceptance of League of Legends load, if that makes sense, in the same way of like the physical strain of playing NBA basketball. But the mental strain of being peak for 10 or 11 months a year, which is the case for these elite players who attend MSI and Worlds every year and All-Star and stream and have the social presence. So it's this weird balance because on one hand, I think what Azael said on some of the podcasts he's been on, like Hotline League and The Dive this week, and I'm going to summarize a little bit what he said, is like it's so arrogant to think that you cannot try and still be the best of the world at something.
Yeah.
But there is also a balance between, and this is kind of my thoughts, there's also this weird balance between, well, yes, but there are also ways where taking a little bit of time off can lead to peak performance.
Yes.
So I don't know where Doublelift is in there. I definitely think with his time on TSM where he took Spring Split off, even though we can look at that and say, hey, this has worked before, that left like long-term damage to his relationship with the TSM teammates and org.
Yeah, I see Bjergsen commenting on it.
Yeah, because like even Jensen, like I can see what I really liked about Doublelift's tweet is he said, I'll be working from now on to regain their trust, which is referring to his teammates. So I don't think it's as simple as Doublelift just saying like, hey, I'm not really motivated this split, guys. Go play with Tactical. I'll be back later. Like, that doesn't work. But if it is, hey, I need some time off, go with this guy. I will later prove that I am better.
Yeah.
Then that's a little bit better. And I think that's that's the hand that was forced on him.
Yeah. So I'm curious then, Les, you are actually a former professional. And so I'm curious from your perspective, is this something that would rub you the wrong way if you were, let's say you like put yourself in Brox's shoes or something. Like, how would you? And like maybe it's harder now because I think maybe back then you were dumber or like less mature than you are. Like now, I think you have a lot.
Sure.
The context has changed a lot. But I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, like how would that affect you as a former professional player?
I think that's super interesting because I think right now there's been a big shift in the power of the org versus the power of the players. So when I played back in basically pre-season 2, like end of season 1. All the decisions were just made by the team. Yeah. So in that case, like if you're a very competitive person, you're just going to want to play with the people that give you the best chance of winning. Yeah. Like straight up. So if they don't think right now Doublelift gives them the best chance of winning, then he shouldn't be on the team. But if he actually, like if spring playoffs are coming up and Doublelift hops in for a few scrims and it's old Doublelift, yeah, he's back. Like as a jungler, I'd be like, yeah, give me Doublelift.
Yeah, just get the best player, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you just move on. Like winning solves everything.
Kind of, yeah, exactly. And I think that's a little bit with Tactical. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Tactical because this is looking ahead, but that's what we get to do on podcasts.
Yes. And
do weird hypotheticals. What if he's really good?
Okay, so this is a really great, like actually a good question because I was thinking about this, and so I think you guys talked about it on with Mark Z, and a lot of other people were comparing Kevin Durant immediately to the situation, and Kevin Durant was last season on the Golden State Warriors. He went down with an injury through most of the playoffs,
calf injury, missed the Western Conference Finals.
People are like, oh, Golden State better without one of the top 3 players in the NBA. Anybody who with the brain could have told you no. And so he comes back in game, I think, 4 or 5 of that series and immediately drops like 10 points in a span of a couple minutes, just like completely torches people. And you're like, oh, right, this is what happens when you have this guy back in. Yeah. And I think that comparison is interesting with Doublelift, but then I started thinking about it some more. And the other one I thought of was back in 2001, the New England Patriots had a quarterback by the name of Drew Bledsoe, who had taken them to the Super Bowl only a couple years earlier. This was like considered one of the best QBs in the league. I don't know.
He was a little bit older at the time, but he was considered like an elite NFL quarterback, like prototypical 6'6", cannon arm.
Yeah, like this guy was like prodigy starting from like probably the time he was 2 years old or whatever, right? Like he was made for the NFL, and then he goes down with an injury immediately, and in comes a little guy named Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, 7th round draft pick,
6th round draft pick, University of Michigan. Here's this guy that like he was drafted for baseball even, so he comes in, and a lot of people are like, I don't actually know what the like the pundits were really hyping it, but I can't imagine many people are like, oh yeah, this Tom Brady guy is going to be, future greatest player in the history of the sport.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying necessarily that Tactical is Tom Brady, but nobody was saying Tom Brady was Tom Brady when he came in either, right? And so it's one of these things where, like, there was one moment I wanted to highlight that what made me think, oh, wow, maybe this kid's actually something special. It was in the second game where he's playing Callista, and there's a point where he was up like 60 CS, and they were sieging the inhibitor turret on bot lane, and he gets really aggressive in that moment, and he starts fighting them under, like, it ended up being kind of a bad play. They had to, like, retreat, but that was kind of like the initiative. I was like, wow, this kid just went for it. Like, that's the kind of play that I like seeing from a new player, because, like, as an AD carry, if you are hitting the mid-late game, you should be looking to win games. Like, you should feel like you can win games for your team if you're playing a good champ, and that particular moment made me like, oh, wow, this kid, like, could actually be special. That's, like, a good mentality right there.
Yeah, I completely agree. The one weird thing, I have this memory, and I'm trying to confirm it right now so I don't say something wrong.
Yeah.
With the Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe scenario is like, he got injured early on in the season, and then Tom Brady takes him to the playoffs.
Yes.
I believe he's back from injury in the playoffs, and he actually plays the first half of one of the playoff games. Drew Bledsoe.
I'm 90% sure you're correct.
Yeah. And then he gets, like, dinged up at the end of one of the first half, and then Brady comes back in again. So even in that situation, even though we know what Tom Brady eventually became, the greatest quarterback of all time, many say, I don't want to get into that right now, because I was a Peyton Manning homer. But,
no, I was too, actually, so we're on the same page there.
Yeah, but even then, like, the Drew Bledsoe brand was so strong, and it's so hard to give the reins over to new people. But here's like the very quick case for Tactical. I like the example that you brought up as well, but I always give a little bit of credence to solo queue for new players as like, hey, at least we should give this guy a chance. And I checked out the top 10 NA solo queue today, and it's actually fairly compelling because most of the people in the top 10 are pro players. Yes. So right now, rank 1 is Surnefire.
And I saw hit right. I was very impressed for that. That's actually also kind of rare for pro players to hit, like, high solo queue ranks. Like, this is kind of unusual.
It's traditionally been rare in NA.
In NA, yes.
And I think what's happened this year, at least, is a little bit, at least, is in past years, scrim culture was different. So people would do scrims 11 to 2. They'd take an hour-long break, and then they'd do scrims 3 to 6, and there were 3-game blocks. And they'd either be with the same team or they'd be 2 different teams. And then a lot of teams started triple blocking. Yeah. So after the 3 to 6, they'd take another break, and they'd do like a 7 to 9, 2 or 3 games, which basically left no room for people to grind solo queue.
Yeah.
Last year, the LEC started doing 1 scrim block a day that was bigger. So they would do 12 to 5 against one team.
Well, that's interesting.
That ported over to NA. So now they are scrimming fewer hours in a day, and it's more condensed, so they can do their morning meetings, eat their food, do this 5-hour scrim block, then work on champion pool and whatever miscellaneous stuff, and more solo queue.
Can you speak a little to why you think teams have shifted to this 5-hour
so
block?
I think I've talked to like a few teams about it. I'm not 100% sure, and there are actually mixed opinions on whether or not it's worth it.
Yeah.
The funny thing about like the scrim culture is if the majority decide to do it, the other people have to.
You have to. Yeah.
Yeah. Like back in the day, this is like a funny story. Basically, Jack dictated what the scrim culture was when he was like the GM of TSM, because everyone wanted to scrim TSM, and Jack was like, well, this is the way my day works, so TSM's going to scrim at this time, and then like everyone had to scrim at 10, like something like that.
That's crazy to think about one team just dictating.
Yeah, just like the power.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the general thing, and I think like GMs and teams would be better to speak on this, so I'll talk to like Papa Smith here about it later and maybe give you more updates, but it's easier to focus and schedule when you're on a 12 to 5, and you're more likely to get 5 high quality scrims, because too many of the shorter blocks were just shit shows. And like actually getting the team to show up exactly on time and be ready, like if a team's going to cancel on you or be late, like giving 2 or 3 windows for that to happen where you're trying to like line up your schedule throughout the day is just difficult. Whereas like 5 games, focus, 5 hours, let's go. And then it actually works kind of like a normal workday, because you get it just flows better than this like really elongated burnout type schedule they had last year.
Do you feel like one thing I've kind of always been curious about with scrims is like no other professional sport do you see teams like really scrimming against other orgs.
Yeah.
And that's something like with academy teams at this point.
I know.
Like my question, and I think part of this is like if we had a better sandbox mode where you could like create like, oh, it's 20 minutes in, let's do practice Baron, then maybe. I'm just kind of, do you feel like we're ever going to shift away from this where we're scrimming against each other? Because that feels like, I don't know, it feels like you're giving away a lot of stuff when you do that.
I feel like it's the same way, but whenever I talk to teams about it, it's just the fact that the games aren't good against academy team. Like the gap between LCS and academy is so big that you just don't get practice against academy teams. And because League of Legends is such a snowball game, like if you're practicing, you're not going to get the right matchup knowledge. If your top laner is just straight up better, like you actually need to lane against an equal skill opponent to learn the way it works.
Yeah.
And unless you actually have two LCS quality teams, like you can't do that. And even if you do, the differences between styles of different teams, like everyone is willing to like give up their secrets for exposure. And maybe that's because we have this international thing that goes on at the end of the year. Like if it was literally just this LCS was the only League of Legends league in the world, maybe we see teams getting more selfish. But for now, I think that's the way it goes. Back to the solo queue point though. Tactical is rank 5 is like the TLDR. We got Surenfire rank 1. I wrote it all down. I want to say it. Surenfire rank 1. Ruin is rank 2. There's actually just a solo queue guy who's not a pro player in rank 3. He's like the misfit in this list.
What's his name? Give him a shout out.
He's like an Echo main. I actually, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but it's Echo and then 3 other words. And he's got 1,450 LP with a 69% win rate in 114 Echo games.
Jesus,
he's a beast. And beyond that, we then have Ruin is rank 2. Sven is rank 4. He had been rank 1 much of the year. Yeah. Then there's Tactical. Then there's Pobelter. Then there's Bang. Then there's Smoothie. Then there's Core JJ. And then there's Tarzan. From Tarzan 5 fame. Yes. But it's like he is in that elite solo queue group, which is 1 start. He duos a lot with Core JJ, so those are actually really hard solo queue games. When you duo queue 2 people in top 10, your MMR goes like way high and your opponents are always super hard. So like they've been succeeding with that. Like, if he actually is really good, then the really spicy stuff starts ticking in.
Do you know where
Doublelift scenario?
So when I solo queue, do you know where Doublelift is? Like solo queue game wise, like where is he? Like how many games has he played?
Not many. A lot of the time they'll smurf. I believe he just plays on Doublelift.
Yeah, one of the subreddits was saying that he was spamming a lot. Like yesterday, that's why they were speculating. He's not scrimming.
He is 505 LP Challenger, which is currently rank 143. Yeah. And he has about 220 games and a lot of games in the last 2 days.
And how does that compare to like how many games does Tactical play?
Yeah, that's a great question. Tactical has 220 games, so not actually that many more.
But he might have.
But I imagine he has other accounts. Yeah. That would be my guess. Yeah, most of the top solo queue guys actually don't have more than like 300 games each.
Yeah, I mean once you get that high, the queue
Core JJ's got 400 on his from Iron, so he's a grinder.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, it's interesting. I always like kind of tracking the top solo queues from each server.
No, it's interesting to hear that like he's been grinding a lot of solo queue in the last few days.
All right, we spent 24 minutes on Doublelift news and general stuff. That's a lot of time.
That's a lot of Doublelift.
Do you have any final like predictions of how this works? These are the things that we'll never be able to get right. Like how many weeks will Tactical start for? Does he start like?
Who does Liquid play this week? I actually.
So Liquid plays CLG and Immortals. Okay, so they are set up for a win streak.
So they should win both of those games. Tactical look good. I mean, at this point, I would basically play him till he loses. Like if I'm Liquid, you've already committed to this, and you've said, "Hey, we're just, Doublelift struggled with motivation issues. Like he should be punished. Like the benching was the correct decision, and I feel like." Tactical looks so good. You just maybe if he has a bad game and you still win, maybe just give double
because you say this and there's a chance they win until that C9 game at the end of the spring split regular season, and then if they lose that, is it already too late to put Doublelift back in?
No, because I think at that point, if you lose to Cloud9, then you still kind of hold a trump card.
Then you just keep Tactical in for playoffs.
Well, I think you have. So it's interesting. You keep Tactical there, and let's say you lose to Cloud9, and then at that point. I think the worst case scenario, I don't really know that's the worst case, but like CPU options, right? So let's say you play Tactical, you lose to Cloud9, you hit playoffs. Let's say first round you go against TSM, and you can just keep Tactical. Let's say you just win, you win that, and then you hit the Cloud9 series again. You already know you've lost to to C9 with Tactical instead of Doublelift,
then you do Doublelift.
then you have your trump card, is what I'm saying. And I think it's kind of a similar situation as when you hit the best teams in the world. Doublelift has been the best player in this role and arguably the best player overall in the region for the last 3-4 years.
He has been.
And like when you hit tougher competition, you want the guy that can just put your team on your back. And as long as like it just kind of depends on what Tactical shows leading up to this, but I just feel like that gives them, hey, this is the dude we can sub back in, and suddenly there's like this mental edge that comes in. And like, let's say Tactical is just kind of nervous in the playoffs. I think just gives like that to me feels like a trump card you can save. Like it's like Doublelift people have called his career like an anime arc. Like this is this is it right now. Like his team's doing fine without him. He's like training, and then it'll be like the critical moment. They're down 0-2, and you can pull that like Swolebro's substitute.
Oh sure, Doublelift gets pulled out from the practice room.
Yeah, we're Doublelift. Like I can imagine you sitting on the cast there, and you're casting alongside like Freak or something, and suddenly they're down 0-2, and you're like, oh, we have news from
oh my god, that would be so hype.
Yeah, and then Doublelift comes in, they're down 0-2. That is the perfect redemption arc for this whole split. He comes in, they reverse sweep Cloud9. Cloud9 doesn't win another title. Like that is where I'm seeing this. That's my prediction.
I mean, even with that's the writer in you that makes that prediction. But like, it's kind of incredible how quickly we got here. From Doublelift is the greatest player of all time in the LCS, who is playing poorly at the start of the split, to hey, maybe Tactical just plays until he loses.
Yeah,
like that was so fast. I think I'm still adjusting, but I really do think that is a possibility. And yeah, I think we will see Doublelift in spring, but I don't think you can actually turn it on that quickly.
Yeah.
I think Doublelift has accrued a lot of debt in teammate trust and also in current skill level, and it's going to be a journey to get back.
I mean, he couldn't play Senna, and I tried playing Senna recently. I was like, Senna's really not that, like, you know, of course it's like for me to be as good as him is like completely different, but it's like Senna's not a particularly complicated mechanical champion, and for him to not look good on it, I thought was a really telling sign. So one other thing you mentioned on your Mike C podcast that I thought was interesting was the Ewing Theory. There's also, I forget who the coach was, but one person suggested, famously, I think it was Don Nelson famously.
Give me your TLDR of the Ewing Theory, because I did it, but I want to hear how you describe it.
So the Ewing Theory is essentially the idea that you have one player on your team that is so good. In this case, it was Patrick Ewing. And he was former New York Knicks center. This guy was like he was famously drafted ahead of Michael Jordan. As the first pick in that draft. He's been like a god since he was a kid, but he never won any championships, right? And so the idea was, does your team, like, is that guy, if you're building around a player who can't win at all, are you just kind of capped? And so the idea was like, what happens when you remove him and your team gets better? And I think it was like Bill Simmons. Like, you mentioned
Bill Simmons coined the term.
And so the idea is, if you remove him from the team and your team gets better, is he potentially, like, he's still a very good player, but he's not conducive to actually
But there
winning.
are these certain environments where sometimes removing a star player can make the team better.
Yes, and so in relationship to Doublelift, and I don't know if it was you, I think it was Ewing, I think Don Nelson or something. Somebody suggested that we trade Ewing or whatever, and he got immediately canned within the month. I forget if it was Ewing or not, but I believe it was Don Nelson.
Okay.
And he
coached for like 5 decades, so it's hard to narrow down.
And he famously suggested to trade away his star player time. I can't remember for sure if it was Ewing, but it's like that was an interesting thing. And it's the same situation with Liquid right now. If you suggest trading Doublelift and you're in that like war room with Liquid, you're gonna get a few weird looks at you, right?
Yeah. Don Nelson says Knicks fired him for wanting Patrick Ewing.
Okay, so it was Don Nelson suggesting Ewing a trade, and so it's kind of a similar situation. But we're not the coaches of Team Liquid, so I'm gonna throw this one out there. Is there a situation in which you trade Doublelift? But let's say Liquid. I'm gonna say Liquid wins out. They knock off Cloud9 with Tactical at the end of the split. Let's say they just win out. With Tactical, like I'm talking just straight win out the split, like entirely in the playoffs. They 3-0 everybody. Go to MSI. Well, I don't know how they go there. Like,
I say there is no world where they trade Doublelift.
Even if they win a spring split with Tactical.
No. So here's why. There's a world. There's no world where I think you should do it.
Yes.
Because I don't think the NBA has, I don't think the LCS has the asset structure to make that trade worth it.
Yes.
Because you cannot get equal value for Doublelift if you're Team Liquid, no matter what. They already have basically stars in every position.
Yes.
Like,
I mean, you can't upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. Unless there were clear upgrades that could be made, and the team that they were trading Doublelift to had a clear hole at AD carry. But like the fact that we don't have the asset structure of future first-round draft picks, which is usually what just gets loaded into the end of every NBA trade. Like, I think Paul George was like 5 first-round draft picks when he got traded to the Clippers.
A lot of draft picks.
Anthony Davis was every draft pick in Lakers history, as well as 3 players.
Yeah, some stake in the team.
Yeah, it was just like this absurd amount of assets for future, but like that doesn't exist here. And if you look at Doublelift as a player, like he's getting in the mind of Doublelift. He's someone who is motivated very powerfully by like betrayal, but there are definitely moments where I will look back in Doublelift's career and think, if that didn't happen, he wouldn't have done this.
Yes.
Like, if he wasn't kicked from CLG, he wouldn't have became 2016 summer TSM Doublelift.
Yes.
If TSM didn't replace him with Sven, he never would have won an MVP. You know? So, like, TL is in this trapped position where if they actually just exiled Doublelift from the team, he's going to make his mission to take down Team Liquid, and he'll probably do it.
And he'll probably do it.
So that's why the fact that they landed this message to Doublelift while keeping him on the team is super important. Okay. Otherwise, he will destroy them.
So I agree with that. I think I would just never I would trade tactical. Like, they could win out the split, and I would trade tactical before I trade Doublelift.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious though. But since we are allowed to play hypotheticals,
okay, sure.
If you had to trade Doublelift, and let's say assets. Let's say the 100 Thieves just like, we'll give you our whole training facility, like our new cool asset.
Oh,
quarters.
like just millions of dollars.
Yeah, we'll give you half of the stake in our team, whatever you want. We'll give you $5 million. If you had the ability to trade Doublelift, and let's say both sides, we'll just ignore the fact that we're not going to get value for it.
Yeah.
What team would he land on that would immediately make them, like, what's his, like, what would be the, like, does that even exist? Could he just replace 180 carry somewhere, and suddenly this team, maybe I'll give you, like, one other replacement too, but, like, we can just drop him on a different team, and now this is his new revenge squad. Like, what is the team that could accomplish that?
Right now, in terms of, like, plug-and-play Doublelift, because I mean, you look back at that first Team Liquid roster, and he's basically just recreating CLG over and over again.
Yeah.
So it's like, pop that dude on Immortals, replace Aka with like Pole Belter.
With Pole Belter.
Yeah, and just go for it. Like, get the band back together.
God, that would be such an interesting roster.
Yeah, and there definitely could be, in some world, like, just absolutely absurd financial incentives where Liquid as a business decides,
like $4 million
decides, hey, we have a high enough chance of winning without him, and this is such a massive boon financially that we have to do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened with C9 and the Vulcan trade with Dignitas. Is the Dignitas CEO said, like, you can't really say no to that size buyout, and it's going to allow us to bolster the rest of the team. So, like, they just did it. Team Liquid, generally speaking, is the most well-funded org in esports, and definitely in LCS. So they aren't necessarily as vulnerable to those large financial incentives. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, people should at least be picking up the phone and inquiring.
I mean, I think it's difficult though, because Doublelift is one of these things where, like, we literally just spent the last 30 minutes talking about him.
He is the face of the LCS.
He carries every aspect of the LCS in terms of branding, and I don't think that's a secret to anybody. It's just like, he is the mega star in our league, and then, like, it used to be him and Bjergsen, and then TSM just hasn't looked good lately. So now it's really just Doublelift. Yeah, and I think that is the bigger risk, like, from just a financial perspective. I don't know if you can put a dollar sign on what Doublelift means in North America.
I mean, so I apologize if people are tired of us talking about Doublelift, but I have a new angle.
Okay.
That I want to think about.
Like, I'm here for Doublelift all day.
Yeah, we joked before this podcast, like, maybe we just talk about Doublelift the whole time, and we'll get to the 10 thoughts later. But if we have this view of Doublelift as, like, franchise player, face of the LCS, like, what Doublelift says has so much wide-reaching impact, it is still a little. It's amazing to me that Team Liquid was able to bench him, and they haven't had immediate backlash. Like, here's the tangent. When LeBron is mailing in the regular season, the Cavs don't bench LeBron.
Yeah.
They trade away the people he doesn't like.
Yes.
Like, that actually happened.
They bend over backwards. And
Yeah.
like, in this case, like, Liquid would trade away, like, oh, your teammates don't trust you anymore, Doublelift? We'll just trade all 4 of them away, you know? Like,
Yeah,
that's
like,
what would
we'll
happen.
get you new teammates, LeBron,
Yeah.
Doublelift. So it kind of tells me that either orcs have too much power or Doublelift's behavior and motivation was actually just completely out of line.
Yeah, I mean,
Right? And it seems like that is closer to the truth.
and he admitted it.
Yeah, and he also admitted it right away. Like, it's not one of those situations where LeBron is, oh yeah, I'm going to take it a little bit easy. I'm not going to fully try on defense, but like I am clearly saving for something.
Yeah, he's like, LeBron's like, I'm going to win you final.
And it didn't seem like Doublelift was being explicitly clear about this. Like, hey, I'm feeling really burned out and hard to find motivation, so maybe you should scrim with tactical. He was just kind of showing up and being, laissez-faire and just not necessarily, I probably used that word wrong.
Well, it's hands off,
And just not really being a part of the team. So that is what would separate it from me. But that's also, like, the fans don't have that context.
Yeah, they don't.
So that's why there were definitely tons of people that were, oh, I feel so bad for you, Doublelift, like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this is actually the right thing to do.
I mean, it's just a shitty thing to come up and you're basically being a fraud. It's like being in a relationship and just like you're not in love with them anymore, and then you just keep pretending for whatever reason. Like, it's just not fair to both sides. And I think if you're just upfront about it, you can maybe work your way.
Yeah, this is like TL's best chance of keeping Doublelift.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think like, let him take some time off. This is like just overall like a commendable approach to the situation.
Yeah, I wanted to get into your article though.
They nailed it. Okay, so I don't want to talk about Cloud9.
I want to talk about FlyQuest.
Yeah, FlyQuest. We're talking about.
We did a lot of league talk. I had a tangent. You mentioned in FlyQuest that you finished second in your 5th grade spelling bee because you spelled spirited wrong.
God.
You panicked at weird grammar rules and put in 2 T's, which is something you remember for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Do you pay attention to the national spelling bee?
I would not say so.
How did you train for the spelling bee? Was it just like for fun, or did you have like a tutor?
No, they had one at our school. It was, I don't know, there was only like 70 kids in my grade or something.
Did you have aspirations to go to like the regional spelling bee?
No, I mean, I ended up going to regional.
Okay.
So that's another story. I'm going to tell that real quick. But this was just one of those things. I didn't know crap. Like, my parents don't speak very much English. We didn't know anything about like what a spelling bee even was. It was just one of those things. It's
right.
like,
Because when did you come over to?
I was born here, but I
Okay.
didn't start speaking English until I was like 5. And
Oh,
so the reason
wow.
my name's pronounced Kien is because I couldn't speak English. My name is actually pronounced Gang, which is very difficult to say.
Yeah, so everyone will call you.
And
Kien.
so my teacher called me Ken for like half the year, and then there was like parent-teacher conferences, and
Yeah.
I don't know how. Like, then they walked out of it, and the teacher apologized and called me Keen. And of course, I was 5. I couldn't really tell her that. Oh, you're still wrong, by the way. But that's how it stuck.
Okay.
And so by fifth grade rolls around, it was one of those things. I couldn't even remember how it began. It was like I remember the moment that I spelled the word wrong, and I don't know any other lead up to it. I remember the kid I lost to, some redhead kid named Steve, nice kid, and. It's one of those things. I probably just show up for school one day. They're like, oh, there's a spelling bee today. I was like, okay. And I just went up there and got second in my school spelling bee. And then that was good enough to go.
That's a good finish.
That was a good finish. And it was good enough to go to regionals where I finished like 11th out of like 50 people or something.
Okay.
Which is like not awful. I don't know if it was 11th. Maybe it was a little worse than that. But I spelled silhouette wrong, which is also.
That's a hard word.
Which is a hard word. I remember.
I don't even know if I could spell that correctly now.
So afterwards, I got it wrong. And so I remember this girl told me, she was like, oh, that's an easy word. I don't know. I think she was just. Kids are weird. But then we walk out to the van, and so Chrysler has a make. It's a minivan called the I don't know if it's Chrysler. I think it's Chrysler. But
Okay.
the make is literally Silhouette.
Yeah.
And so I got a ride from Steve's mom, and so she pointed out the van's name was Silhouette.
The Oldsmobile Silhouette.
Oldsmobile. Okay,
just
yeah.
Googled it, yeah.
So that's the van that we drove in to get to this freaking spelling bee. And I was like, oh. I mean, did you ever have a spelling bee?
No, I never did it. I did like chess and stuff, but basically I was really interested because I did some Googling before this actually because it made like national news last year that there was an 8-way tie in the national spelling bee.
How do you tie?
They ran out of words.
What?
Yeah, so there were 8 co-champions. The final 47 words were spelled correctly in the last 5 consecutive rounds.
Oh my.
So they apparently they only prep a certain amount of words at the highest difficulty, and the spelling bee has become so absurdly competitive that there's just like these god spelling kids that can do everything.
I'm just like, at that certain point, can't you just make some shit up? Like, it's like, oh, we're done with the English language.
Now we're going to start spelling Vietnamese words.
Yeah, you have to have the accents correct, good luck. And then, half of them will probably still get it.
Yeah, that was just kind of amazing to me. So that's why I was curious, like, were you a spelling bee kid? Like, did you grind?
Absolutely not. I just was
apparently
randomly
that's
up there.
like a whole industry now, where there's just like spelling bee tutors, and they actually cut down.
Yeah.
There used to be this thing, they introduced this thing in 2018 called like wild card entrance, which for like either really competitive districts, they would allow multiple people to come if you paid your own travel and paid a $1,500 fee. Yeah. So they're like, wait a minute, too many kids are in the spelling bee because so many people were doing this.
I mean, I'm like the equivalent of like a season 1. I'm like elements of the spelling bee. I was like, I was like good when nobody else needed to be, and it was like that was a long time ago. But the point of the spelling bee thing was, my point is, being second is FlyQuest got completely crushed by Cloud9. There's like, and my point is, I think you could say FlyQuest is closer in skill level, and they would have a closer series against Counterlogic Gaming, the 10th place team, than they would the first place team Cloud9, which is, and like, whether that's correct or not, I think it's 50-50 enough where you could see why somebody would make that argument. And if not FlyQuest and any of the 5 and 7 teams, they're certainly closer to.
Yeah, that's like kind of punishing FlyQuest for C9 being superhuman, though.
Yeah, like I'm not saying this as like FlyQuest sucks kind of thing. I'm saying this as look, you guys are second, that's great, but you're so far away from Cloud9 that like, what is, like, to me, if I'm FlyQuest and I'm sitting there's got to be a moment you're sitting on like the toilet, you're in the shower or something, you're like, my God, like, how are you ever going to catch up to Cloud9? Like, and it's like, so to your, like, I'm curious to you then, like, is there a point to being second?
I mean, yes, in the fact that Cloud9 can't pick you to play in the first round of the playoffs. Like, that's the biggest thing, because the new playoff structure is first 4 basically get double in, but number 1 gets to pick between 3 and 4 who they want to play. So
the idea is to like
go get it, FlyQuest.
Get second, and hopefully, like, maybe you get a lucky, like, they have a bad day. Let's say Sven has a stomach ache or something.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what you're hoping for. At this point.
You're hoping to somehow be able to make it into the playoffs and have the only team you really have to worry about be Cloud9, and then you're able to tailor a few things. It's still like so unlikely that someone beats Cloud9, especially FlyQuest. Like, even though they win, and I'm very impressed with Power Beeble.
Yes.
He's been exceptional. Ignar has actually been more surprising to me, because I didn't expect that much out of Ignar coming into the split.
I think a lot of people thought he was washed up, honestly. He was in Korea for a year, and it was like what the heck happened to this guy?
Yeah, he was back in Europe for a little bit and did like okay, but yeah, they've been good. But I do agree with you. So much of my individual LCS hype is going in, and I know you don't want to talk about Cloud9, so I'm just going to say it really quickly.
They're so good. That's our
how incredible C9 is. I liked your part about the C9 mid lane turret going 0-1-0.
Isn't that crazy when we look at this stat?
So the turret was close to dying a few times.
Yes.
But because Nisqy roams and people get turret plates, but then after plates fall, no one touches it. And the fact that Dig got this on like some weird bot lane to mid rotation.
It was the weirdest rotation. It was like from Gromp all the way up. Or Golems, I mean.
This is the extra. Okay, I'm actually going to be done with Cloud9 after this. But the funny thing is, like, all these ridiculous records that C9 have, they are broken in ways that are still good for Cloud9. Like when Sven had his first death, it's because the most fed carry on the other team, Froggen, flank flash ulted one dude, and then they just get destroyed in the fight. And then this mid turret was a 2-for-1 turret trade. Like it was actually a good play for C9, and I love that they don't care about protecting those basically meaningless records, and they're still trying to play like top League of Legends.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was nice to see.
Immortals. Worst team, best worst team, 6-6. I still call them the best worst team.
Okay, so the thing. Oh, well, before I jump to Immortals, I just want to give one quick shout out because you mentioned the solo queue rankings earlier. From FlyQuest.
Yeah.
Viper's brother. I don't know if you saw this. A kid named General Sniper. 13-year-old one trick.
Oh, this is on their like solo queue show.
Yeah, it was 13-year-old one trick Riven main. Surprising.
Yeah.
After
ranked
Viper
12.
and
He's
Aurelia.
13?
Yeah, he was 8. He was ranked 8 when they posted this, so he was in the top 10. But he's 13 years old, and I'm telling you, at 13, I was like picking my nose and playing RuneScape or something. Like that's crazy to hit that high of a rank when you're 13. Just want to give that kid a shout out.
This is really funny. I just googled General Sniper. So he's in season 10 at 13.
Yes,
and he's Challenger 1200 LP. That means when he was 12 in season 9, he was Grandmaster 356. At 11, he was Gold 1. At 10, he was Gold 1. And at 9, he was gold 2.
Damn, man.
There was a 9-year-old player in gold, apparently. If this is actually General Sniper's account this whole time, because OP.GG goes all the way back to season 6.
God.
And it's Viper his brother?
Yeah, it's
I
Viper's
love how
brother.
he's playing Riven.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's just like the most wholesome thing.
It's amazing, right? It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool to see that. And I don't know, I just want to, like, and it's just thinking about my own solo queue play, it's just a good reminder, like, because I still
that sometimes there's an 11-year-old in your game that's better than you?
Well, that, and sometimes when you're typing against the 11-year-old that's flaming you, and this is something I have to tell myself, because I've been chat restricted a couple times in the past.
Oh.
So I've had, sometimes I get into it with people, like, you know, I'm a lot better now.
Yeah.
Sometimes I still, I'm probably type a little too much, but I don't have the right tag, you know, trying to, like,
you're incognito.
Yeah, a little
if
bit.
the report system says you're too bad, you'll know it's because you were too bad.
But my point is, sometimes I have to always step back and remind myself, like, that kid you're arguing against might be 13, might be 14, might be 15, might be 8.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, like, so it's good for you, General Sniper. Hope to see you in the LCS someday. You know?
Me too. Yeah.
Very cool to hit that. That's an insane ranking for a 13.
Yeah, we won't be able to see him until he's 17.
That's 4 years later. Like, he's the new pole belter, because pole belter was famously
actually
prodigy when he was 13. You know.
Yeah, he was with Curse, the original Steve team.
I mean, there was that famous interview where he was with Rachel Seltzer at the time, and it was one of the IPLs where it was one of his first ones.
I remember this interview.
And pole belter's like this, like, baby face. He has braces still, and she's just asking, like, you know, what are you looking forward to? It's like, I got exams. I gotta go study.
Yeah. My 9th grade chemistry test, like.
and that was like 10 years ago at this point. So, you know, get up here, General Sniper. Keep at it, buddy.
Yeah.
Also, maybe start playing some tanks too.
Yeah.
You know?
So if you don't want to get chat restricted, I've been thinking about this as well.
Yeah.
I jungle, so it's the worst. I've gotten very good at knowing when someone will tilt me, and I mute them.
Yeah. I mute people a lot quicker now.
It's like, I know. I love chat when it's fun. Like, it's you can create memes with your team. There was one, like, awesome game I had where a guy was playing Ziggs bot, and we, like, bonded over Kobe. Like, every time he'd throw a bomb, he'd be like, Kobe, and then, like, even he was actually a tiny bit toxic, because he was like, he was calling the team bad and, like, get on my back and let me carry you. I'd be like, oh, Mamba mentality, I'm coming. It was just such a great game. And if I muted him, I wouldn't have been able to have that experience. Yeah. But usually it's good to just mute.
Just mute people. That's
all right. Episode of Tangents. I had a point about Immortals.
Yes.
I do think the Immortals COG game was a bit of a mess.
Oh, it was a wild mess.
It was wild. But what I will say is, there's a balance here, but that's why you signed SOAS.
Yeah, I knew they would win. It was like
games like that.
Like by 30 minutes, like we saw 15 minutes to the end. I knew Immortals would win once SOAS. There was a point where SOAS, like, he just stopped grouping and team fighting at all.
Yeah,
and I was like, Immortals is going to win this game because of this.
This is actually what SOAS has done his whole career. This is his specialty. It is his defining skill as a player. So there is a part of me that wishes every time SOAS styles and shows why he's a professional player, people don't immediately go, oh man, what a terrible game. Because, like, SOAS has done this to RNG at Worlds.
Yeah.
He won a quarterfinal game because he did this.
It was incredible. It was a very impressive.
Yeah, it's like, so I had this for you. To me, SOAS is kind of like peak J.R. Smith. Yeah. Or a Lou Williams, or, like, if you saw Karis LeVert's 52-point game. Like, he's a guy who can win you the game, but will never be the best player on, like, a Worlds finalist.
Yeah.
He can be a contributor to a championship team, or occasionally he will just win you a game.
See, I think you're underselling him. I'm going to call him Klay Thompson, and I'm going to say every now and then he just drops
the 70-point game in 3 quarters.
He just drops 30 points in a quarter, and I think that's what it feels like to me. Is like, I think because he's an all-star, right?
He's not perceived like Klay Thompson though, because if Klay Thompson drops 60 on the Atlanta Hawks, people don't say the NBA sucks.
Well, true.
Right? It's weird in that way, but when LeVert does it to the Celtics,
I see
everyone's like,
from that
yo.
perspective. Okay, yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I can see that perspective. I'm just thinking more play style wise, like, because I think SOAS has been an all-star, regarded as one of the best players to ever play this game.
Yeah.
And I think he deserves all the credit that he gets. A lot of the questions, is he washed up now? He went to NA. I think very clearly he's still good enough to win games here or there, but just by himself. And it's been really, it just kind of made me wonder when I see games like that, is like, what if he had maybe a better team around him?
Yeah.
Like, what could he actually accomplish in NA? Like, he's only a few years removed from his finals run with Fnatic, you know? And in that finals run, they knocked off IG twice in the group stage.
One was, they were swapping him with Whippo.
One was Whippo, and I think they won one game with. So as alone, it was also another one of those kind of like crazy, so as all over the map.
Yeah.
And then the last one they lost was like the 3 games in the group stage. Like, we remember the finals being just like a complete stomp, but the 3 games they played in the group stage that year, where Fnatic won 2 of them, were really, really good actually. And like Soaz contributed a lot to that team, and I just, he's not that far removed from that, and I think it's an interesting style of play. And it's not, I don't even know if it's a style. It's just like he just recognizes what he needs to do at any given point, and that's the test. That's the good point about IMT, and that's literally the reason they're 6-6, right? Yeah,
a lot of it has been Soaz. I'm quickly trying to fact check because I'm wondering if Whippo played both of the tiebreaker games against IG.
Was it Whippo in both? I know Soaz played one of them against IG. I can't remember if he played the loss though.
Yeah, I'm 2 seconds away from this answer. In the first one, it is the Shai versus Whippo, and in the second one, it is Duke versus Whippo. So he was swapping games with them all split, because that was also the year where Whippo was like a bot laner, and Soaz was top lane, and then they kept swapping the back and forth.
Oh, that's right, the weird Swain stuff.
And then eventually Soaz did play game 3 of the World Final, where it was already lost. But anyway, continuing on.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing I was going to say, though, is before they were on a 4-game losing streak before they finally beat CLG.
Yeah.
My question is, do you, and this is also a CLG point.
Yeah.
Is CLG the worst team in the league right now? Because if they're not, then I think IMT's kind of in that conversation.
Yeah, I think CLG will probably end with the worst record, but I don't think they're the worst team.
Yeah, the record aside.
That's the way I'm reading it right now. Although their schedule doesn't actually get easier in a weird way. The first game Paul Belter played was game 9 of the regular season, which just happened to be C9. So they still have to play C9 again.
Yeah.
And this week they play what looks to be a powered up TL.
Yeah.
And then EG. But I do think that that's the weirdest thing about LCS right now, is I actually think that in any game, literally any game that doesn't involve C9, and just based on what we saw last week, or TL, I don't know who will win.
Yeah.
And that includes FlyQuest. FlyQuest has consistently been better, so I'd probably favor them.
Yeah, but they could drop any game.
But yeah, like, I will not be shocked if when FlyQuest plays CLG, if CLG can win.
Yeah. No, I think it
makes the league entertaining in that sense, but there's very few sure things right now other than C9 and Sven having a good KDA.
And TSM not going 1-1.
Oh my God, yeah. So TSM.
So you guys touched a bit on this in the Sunday podcast. You'd already seen both games. You talked about the creative drafts. We saw. I talked a little about I just want to say real quick. I liked the Maokai draft so much that I tried Maokai a couple times in solo queue.
In mid. Yeah.
I went 0-7 and then 0-9. We got completely smashed. So like, curse you.
Have you played Maokai before?
I played. So before he got reworked, if I was top lane, that was my like go-to safety pick, him or Malphite, because I don't play top. I picked the tank and I just clicked and it's under my turret, and then we group and team fight. And I had a very high win rate just doing that. I'm terrible at mid Malphite or mid Maokai.
Okay, I think it's okay actually. Yeah. I mean, but I play a lot of Maokai.
Azale tweeted about it too. That's the other thing that convinced me. Azale was like, "Oh, this has been a really strong solo queue pick." I was like, "All right, Azale, I trust you. Let's go test this."
Tanks mid are real good.
And I just suck at it.
Yeah, C9 and FlyQuest are TSM opponents this week, and the point that I basically wanted to bring up is 6 and 8's a real possibility.
That's a real possibility.
Yeah, and there are always 2 very real sides to the coin with TSM, because before the Doublelift thing, TSM was the top story.
Yeah.
And the fact that they lost to CLG and went 0-2 last week. So I have a lot of thoughts about them. They just got pushed to the back of my brain because of the Doublelift thing. But they have the creative drafts, which can be good in a sense that, hey, they are clearly trying different strategies that they are grinding throughout the week, like Taliyah Pantheon.
Yep.
They just grinded in scrims the whole week. I think Maokai mid, they probably put in like maybe a whole day of scrims.
Yeah.
One of those scrim blocks was Maokai mid games that were clearly successful. They're doing this because they want to have it ready for later, but their actual fundamentals, is what they need to be working on.
Yeah.
I think they have this feeling that their fundamentals are good enough that they're ready to move on to this next stage of comp building.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
So if your fundamentals are strong enough, this is the week where they have to be able to prove it. Because it's almost feeling like best case they come out of this at 7-7 because we're not expecting them to beat C9. Saying that usually just means I can see the upset call.
They might 2-0 right now. I don't know.
But yeah, the C9 FlyQuest is about, this is the worst time to have it after an 0-2 week and losing to COG and having all that community backlash, and you're going to be reimagining, like, are we really doing the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, they got
to figure it out.
They're doing the things they should have done in like 2016 and 2017 when they were smashing everybody. Like this is when they should have been experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious. I think I saw that stat. I didn't have a chance to confirm it, but it kind of confirmed my own suspicion, which was I think Bjergsen has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, amount of gold share post 15 right now.
That wouldn't surprise me at all
in the LCS
because every game I see they are dropping sideways and they're like overgrouping.
And he's down CS a lot. Like the Thea game, for example, he was down like 100 CS. Maokai game is down CS. There's been a lot, like the Zoe game down CS. There's been a lot of games where he's just been down a lot of CS in the mid to late game, and that's not like oh, Bjergsen just suddenly can't click on minions post 15 minutes. That's like a conscious decision from the team to not allocate these resources to him.
Yeah.
And maybe it's his own decision to like, oh, I need to be here instead.
Yeah.
That feels like such a reversal from what TSM is known for. In the few games that they've been most dominant in the split are when he's playing Bjergsen, or not
Syndra.
He's playing
Yep.
Syndra. Yeah, that's right. When he's playing Syndra, and that's when they've looked great. And I just feel like maybe they just know in the back of the head they have this like, oh, we can just always fall back on the strategy, just give Bjergsen all the farm, let him carry. Like we can win if we do that, but we'd want to win in other ways. I don't know if that's actually what's happening.
Yeah.
But it's just really strange for me to see Bjergsen not be given resources.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily he's not giving resources, he's choosing not to take them.
Yeah.
Is kind of my guess. Kabe has the high, and the stat you're referring to is CS percentage post 15.
Yeah.
Which Uzi historically is like 35 or 40%.
It takes like everything.
That's how he gets to 400 CS by 30 minutes. He takes 2 lanes in the jungle. Yeah. Kabe is highest in league at 35.7%. Oh. Bjergsen's tied for lowest for mid lane with Ryoma at like 22%.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so he's really getting low amounts of late game farm, and I think it is hurting them. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. Cause like Kabe, and this is not a knock against him, he's just never been the type of player that's going to like Uzi 1v9, Doublelift 1v9. Like, he's a very reliable player.
Yeah, he's a guy that I want to see at 30% CS share, not 36.
Yeah, like he could be your sneaky, in my opinion, where I feel like he could do a lot with little, and I feel like you should give Bjergsen more resources.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts of the LCS?
I just want to touch
the other teams
on Dignitas real quick.
Okay.
Because this was something I've talked about. Like, I've been kind of anti-Dignitas for a bit.
And now they're 5-7. Is this the victory lap?
Yeah, I mean, so they're 2-7 in their last 9 games, which ties them with CLG for the worst record in that span.
This is true.
And so one of the things that has happened is you saw this week they had picks including Anivia, Ziggs, Lucian Top with Ignite, and then Jinx, and 3 of those were in the exact same game. Like, that Cloud9 game just felt like, I don't know, like what the hell they were doing with the draft.
That was one of the worst cohesion team compositions I have ever seen.
I literally said that it felt like, oh, maybe they just forget, like, they weren't playing LCS. They thought they were playing Clash or something and just picking their, like, it literally felt like they just picked their favorite champions.
Yeah.
And that was
Cocoon is like the only way to engage.
Yeah, and it just made zero sense to me. And then I asked for the Anivia stat. Froggen is now 3-8 in his last 11 games on Anivia, and that is, I think, is really worrying. I said I was worried about his champion pool. I think this kind of confirms it. Is when he's picking Anivia, theoretically, because it's never been in meta, that means he is saying, hey guys, this is my comfort pick. I feel like it's a good spot to pick it. And for you to still be 3-8 in situations where you're picking a comfort pick, I think speaks, like, it's a really bad spot to be in.
Right. It's like you want that pick to be like Viper's Riven.
Yeah.
Right? Like, where, hey, when you do pick it, it's this asset.
I was very surprised that it was that bad. I was thinking it'd be at least 500.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of.
He's also been on some pretty bad teams whose overall win rate was probably that low.
Yeah, but we've also been saying for a while now, like, oh, Froggen doesn't have a team. At a certain point, like, I mean, when do people start? Like, Froggen's been the constant in all of his bad teams, and it's like, here's another team that's, again, 2-7 in their last 9 games. This is like, when I was saying maybe IMT's the worst team, maybe it's actually Dignitas right now. That is.
All right. I'll say this: I think Dig will be 7-7. I think they'll beat 100 Thieves and Golden Guardians. That's probably my bold call
Okay,
this week?
I'm gonna go with they're gonna go 0-2 and be 5-9,
Okay.
and I'm gonna say this because we just watched the Golden Guardians drive with Goldenglue, which should be out by the time.
Yeah,
you
it's
see
like
this.
it's awesome. If people haven't seen it, it's like 19 minutes long about football in Texas.
Yeah.
Like the guy he was backing up as a tight end is now an NFL tight end. Like he was on a legit football team. It's cool.
I'm a little on the Golden Guardians hype train right now, just because I watched that.
Okay.
But and so 5-9. But with I just want to talk a little bit about the drive, and I thought it was because it was. I know it's not supposed to be funny, but it kind of made me laugh the whole time watching it because it was like every minute, like I think it would be like, and then I was benched. And then 1 minute later, tell a quick story, and I was benched.
Yeah.
And it was just funny to see that his origin is playing behind this like superstar tight end from his high school that ended up scoring like an NFL caliber tight end. And I'm like, damn, Goldenglue has just like literally always been the bench guy.
Yeah.
In his entire life. And of course he's starting now. Congratulations to him. I think it's been great. Golden Guardians has looked a lot better than anybody would have expected. But there's still no like actual guarantee that by at the end of the split, if he gets benched again at the end of the split, I don't think anybody is particularly surprised.
Golden Guardians Academy mid laner is good. They have Blaze Olive. He's been good in Academy for a while.
So I'm sitting here, I'm just like, I fingers crossed. I love Grayson. I think he's a great dude. I hope he doesn't get. I hope they just ride him out for a little bit.
Yeah.
But if he gets benched, it wouldn't surprise me. Like if that's the next chapter, it was an interesting. Like I loved the narrative. I thought it was great to see him come back. Hang in there, Goldenglue.
It was one of my favorite drives because I think oftentimes the drive is like, here are my origins, and this guy is just a superstar.
Yeah.
Right? This guy has never been the best.
Oh, he's like
his whole life.
Quote unquote, literally the gym rat. He's a gym rat.
And he's just grinding
hard.
and grinding and grinding and grinding. And like, it's titled drive.
Yeah.
So like, you take that mentality to some of the like Chouster, Link, like the OGs.
Man, if you could stick this
if
mentality.
they had Goldenglue's drive, would they still be here? Is the question. Watch it. And then
if Doublelift had his drive, Doublelift wouldn't have gotten benched. I was thinking about this all the time. I see a lot of my favorite players throughout history, like High, for example, stop playing Sulk. If he had the same drive as Goldenglue, he'd probably still be around. And it's like so respect to Goldenglue on that aspect.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think I could get benched 10 times and still be in the league.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So very impressive that he has resilience. Impressive that he keeps finding opportunities as well. It's like people are seeing something from him behind the scenes. Like hopefully this is your split, my dude.
We've created a small pattern of talking about the NBA at the very end of the podcast.
Yes.
I wanted to do that again.
So I want to give a quick shout out to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
SGA, for short.
I don't know. So I saw this clip yesterday before this game against the Clippers, who he used to be on their team.
Yeah, so he was a rookie for the Clippers. He was part of the Paul George trade, and now he's on Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and he's their leading scorer. He's looked great. Like people aren't really talking about him. And Oklahoma City is surprisingly like doing really well this season.
Yeah, they're a
with Chris
playoff
Paul.
team.
And the thing I wanted to give a shout out to was Tyronn Lue, former coach of the Cavs, also former Laker, famously got stepped over by Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
And so I want you to like Google this because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander last night wore a hoodie that was the image of Allen Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue, and it just like plastered all over the hoodie.
Yeah.
It is. I saw that and I was like, oh God, gotta give this dude the shout out. It was just like, I want that sweater.
Why did he wear it? Because he was playing the Clippers and lose an assistant coach?
I mean, just strictly because, I think
that would be it.
Just to be funny, talk shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't need a reason to wear that. I would wear that shit to work.
That's a detailed hoodie.
Yeah, you see it, right?
Yeah, it's an Instagram post from the OKC Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, it is like hilarious. And
damn.
So shout out to the dude who's also having a great year. So
yeah,
beyond the being funny off the court.
Who's your? Do you think Giannis is a lock for MVP? That's what I wanted to talk about.
I mean, he has to be a lock.
That's what everyone is saying.
I saw that.
But so I'm a bit of a LeBron stan.
So I saw. Who's the Pelicans coach again? Elvin Gentry.
Yeah, Gentry.
Came out and said he doesn't understand why anybody but LeBron would be MVP. And that's one of the things. This is when Bjergsen was dominant. This was my LeBron theory as well. Was Bjergsen was the LeBron of the LCS?
Yeah.
In that you could give Bjergsen the MVP every single split,
unless someone else shines, in which case they get it.
Between 2013 and 2017, even if somebody else shined, I think you could have given Bjergsen the MVP every single split, and it wouldn't have been that controversial. Like people might have gotten a little mad, like some split here or there, but like he was always top 3. And I think LeBron is basically, LeBron is literally that for the NBA. But
yeah, I had a take of I think Giannis is and should be the current front runner.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's over, and here's why.
Okay.
The Bucks are 52-9.
Uh-huh.
The Lakers are 47-13. There's 4 differences in the loss column.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times Giannis doesn't even play the fourth quarter, and the Bucks have actually looked pretty decent in games where Giannis hasn't even played.
Mm-hmm.
When LeBron's not on the floor for the Lakers, it feels like their offense generally falls apart. If down the stretch, this is like the conditions for LeBron to win, if the Lakers can actually end with a better record than the Bucks, which 4 losses right now. If the Bucks do go on a bit of a slide, they had 2 games recently where they failed to score 100 points.
Giannis dropped like 40 in one of those games just to be.
Yeah, and that was like the MVP duel day where Giannis did a 40-20 game, and then LeBron I think smashed Zion and the Pelicans.
Yeah.
So yeah, if the Lakers end with a better record than the Bucks, and LeBron ends with like 25, 7, and 10.5 or 11, like the 11 assists as well, people start looking up the like on court, off court plus minuses, and he has so much of a fan base that a lot of media personalities might get pressured into voting for him, if that makes sense. Then I can see he wins. I don't think it's over yet. That's all I wanted to say.
I think it's over. I think the question is whether it's unanimous or not.
Okay.
He's averaging 30 and 14 or something. It's insane.
Yeah, with like under 30 minutes.
And he's not even playing. It's like the dude is nuts.
29.6, 13.8, and 5.8.
God.
Which is a 31.9 PER, and that's in the fewest minutes he's played per game since his rookie season.
His player efficient rating is, I think, one of the highest in history.
Yeah.
And I think
LeBron is at 25.8, which is 8th in the league.
If you give it to LeBron, not the worst thing to happen.
It's almost like a lifetime achievement MVP if you give it to him. It's
but he's won so many.
You haven't
MVPs
won it
already.
in like 6 years. Here's your 5th.
I don't know,
Congrats.
Just give it to Giannis. Okay. Other thing I wanted to ask then is, and I was thinking about this. I thought it was an interesting question. I don't know. So the Rockets, if you were,
the 6'6",
yeah, so they're
or less.
They're famous for basically they're all short, and when I say short, I mean like they're all still taller than us.
Yes, but in NBA terms, PJ Tucker is their center.
They're a bunch of short dudes out there playing what is called small ball, and so they're just running. So basically, the way they play is they spread the floor. Russell Westbrook is a freaking arrow. They shoot down the center of the lane. He drives, and then he either kicks it out or he finishes. So one or the other. I am curious to ask you. I'm going to tie this back to League of Legends. Is there an equivalent to being able to play small ball in League of Legends? And the way I was thinking about this is from a personnel perspective, you could, for example, let's say you could clone perks and stick 5 perks on the maps. They're kind of scrappy, willing to fight and play a lot of different champions. If you could put 5 perks on the maps, that kind of feels similar. Is there a team comp that could feel like one of the things that's kind of frustrated me about League of Legends from a professional standpoint is it seems so solved when the game has 150 champions and so many different ways, in my opinion, to play it. Like when you see in solo queue, there's a lot of different interesting things. But at the highest level, it is always, and like FPX, I think, kind of upended this a little bit last year with some of the champion picks they played. It has always felt a little like, I don't know if we've really tested the other things. Like we say, it's good to have 2 people bot lane, it's good to have a jungler. I'm wondering, is there a possibility where you ever have like a team that just perfects like a double jungle style or something, or would we always just nerf it immediately out of the ground? And I'm kind of curious, have we truly solved League of Legends, or will we ever hit a renaissance where, like in season 1 famously, we
AD carry support bot became a thing. We haven't really shifted away from that like at all. Like there've been a few lane swaps up, and like in general we haven't really shifted. Do you think that, and because you were on the game design team for a while too, do you think we would ever shift into a world where like a small ball might be possible, or a team that can just play around like a Levi Nocturne carry, Master Yi, and that's just their style, is they will always just funnel Yi Tarek or some similar comp? This might not seem like a precise answer, and I'll probably end up talking around it a little bit because you sparked a few things in my head. So there is definitely a difference between League and the NBA where we can make rule changes way faster. And we do.
Yeah.
If there seems to be a strategy that is not entertaining or not fun, then it's kind of considered bad innovation, and there are game design changes made to fix that.
Yes.
Like lane swapping would be an example of this.
I love lane swapping.
Lane swapping may have been kind of like small ball, if that makes sense. But I kind of want to define what small ball is to me,
Yes.
so we can have like a shared language. I think what the Rockets are doing now has been in the works since the Phoenix Suns, which Mike D'Antoni coached.
Yes.
And I've heard him and Steve Nash have like these regrets that we just didn't commit hard enough. Like we were shooting more threes than anyone, and we should have been shooting twice as many.
More, yeah.
Right? But Steve Nash described it as a glass ceiling where there was only so much they could do because they were already so different from the rest of the league. So the rest of the league had to change before they could try and push it to a higher level. From like an acceptance standpoint, like even D'Antoni and Kerr made the trade for Shaq.
Yeah.
Because they were like, well, we can't beat the Spurs without Shaq.
Need a big,
right? You need a big.
Yeah.
So it's like what the Rockets are doing now with microball is like the most extreme version of the Suns, where, as you mentioned, it is totally 5 wide. It's 53s a game, and it's opening up things for the small guys to drive. And even this is getting tons of critics to be like, you went too far. This is wrong. It'll never work.
Yeah.
And they're just getting slammed for it.
People hate it.
Yeah.
Like Bill Simmons he just had a podcast where he apologized for hating it, actually.
Even though it could actually be, we don't know, it could actually be the way of the future.
Yes.
So the closest example I have for this would actually be, I think it was patch 811, where mages were pushed into the bot lane and AD carries were pushed out.
Yes.
People hated it.
People hated it.
It might have been better for the league. Like, honestly, it might have been better for esports. It might have been better for League of Legends if you can actually play more than just ranged auto-attacking champions in the bot lane.
I liked it.
And it can be open up. But there is so much, like there's a glass ceiling on that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the small ball of League is like, oh yeah, by the way, you don't need an AD carry. Or you put your AD carry anywhere else.
People are
kind of. It's like an imperfect analogy, but that's the type of pushback you get whenever you do something that is actually different.
Yeah, I mean, people are resistant to change. Because, like, if you could play, like, 3 assassins on a team at the same time, like your jungler is an assassin, and you have 2 solo lane assassins.
Yeah,
like,
there'll be people like, that'll never work.
Yeah.
The other team just needs a tank. I mean, it's actually like, you just need a center. It'll never work to not have a center.
But then if you can find, like, let's say you have 3 Soazes just splitting around the map, skirmishing all the time, or you have 3 caps. Like, I think part of it comes to personnel, right? Like, not everybody can do what the Rockets is doing, because not everybody has Russell Westbrook.
And also, the Rockets would be better if they had Kevin Durant and Draymond Green.
Yeah.
Because there are people that could spread the floor offensively the same way, and then you wouldn't have the same defensive holes.
Yeah.
So what the Rockets are doing is an imperfect version of the optimal way to play.
Yeah.
But the lane swapping and funneling, this is like personal experience from the design team. There is definitely, you tread very carefully when your pro game cannot be replicated in solo queue. Because that is one of the like strongest strengths of League of Legends, is that the game you're watching at least kind of looks like the game that you're playing. And since lane swapping was so complex and so nuanced and the skill expression wasn't obvious, it was like, let's just like,
axe it.
They just had, that was kind of the call.
I mean, it always made sense why they did. I just, like, from a diehard esports perspective, I think a lot of people I've talked to actually really liked watching the lane swap mechanics, because it created a lot of interesting mind game and map movements.
Yep, and I learned how it worked so I could cast it, and like I knew all the intricacies, but like when it was done perfectly, it was like this handshake that was just really boring. So in that way there are things that fight against innovation, and like I said, I was going to talk in a circle. That's pretty much all I got. Good chat though.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm very interested to wrap it all up to see whether or not Doublelift plays again in the spring split.
Yep. Okay, last thing then is give it a percentage. What are the odds you see him again?
60.
60.
I'm still pretty, but I just don't know when. It depends on how well they do without tactical. If they run off 8 wins in a row, he's not coming back.
I'm saying 100% we see Doublelift again.
All right, I like confidence.
There we go.
I think that's irresponsibly high, but go for it.
I don't have to be responsible to nobody, to nothing.
Kien Lam, 10 Thoughts. It's on LoLesports.com. Check it out. Goldenglue Drive on the LoLesports YouTube channel. This podcast on the JLXP YouTube channel. Search JLXP in YouTube or Spotify or iTunes or SoundCloud, or I'm pretty sure we're on basically every podcast platform. If we're not, send me a tweet. We'll get it up there. Thank you for listening once again, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.